everyone, and in this session we are going to talk about the absorption of digested products. So let us begin with our topic. So absorption of food is very crucial event in the process of digestion. Now, after the food has broken down into simpler forms and absorbable forms, now it needs to get absorbed into our blood and lymph so that it can transport it to our body for the basic function and necessary functions for the overall functioning of our body. So as we studied that the maximum absorption takes place inside the small intestine. Now, how come in small intestine the maximum absorption is taking place? So basically it is because of the villi, the structure villi, which is present on the surface of the small intestine, which is providing this small intestine with the larger surface area through which the maximum absorption of nutrients like glucose, fructose, amino acids, and electrolytes are taking place, and also these nutrients are transported directly inside the blood. So this is the structure of villi as you can see here. Now inside this villi you can see that there are various blood capillaries present into which these nutrients that we just talked about are getting transported directly inside them. Now the only function of villi wherever it is present is only to provide the larger surface area for the absorptions of materials. So now absorption in the intestinal mucosa. We are talking about absorption in the intestinal mucosa. It takes place by two processes. One is the active transport, another one is the passive transport. Now, first we will talk about the active transport. So first thing we will do is imagine that there is a room full of boxes. So here I am making a room full of boxes, this one on the right side. So here you see that I have put so many boxes inside this one room. Now if I want to add one more box inside this room, so it will require some amount of energy so that I can fit this box inside this room which is full. Yes, so what do I require here? I require some amount of energy. So the same thing happens in the active transport also. Here in this animation, you see that some molecules are moving across the cell membrane here. Cell membrane with the help of ATP as you can see here. And why is that? The question comes here, why it is happening so? It is because the molecules are moving from their lower concentration. So here you see the amount of molecules in this area are less as compared to the area here. So for this reason, the molecules are moving from their lower concentration to their higher concentration. And if such kind of movement is there, so it will definitely require ATP. It will require ATP so that we can move these molecules from one side to another side, as we have seen in the example of the room which was full of boxes. Now how we are going to remember if the active transport requires energy? So the easiest way to remember is if we talk about A for active, so we can say A for ATP, which is the energy currency of our body. And the active transport only requires the energy for the transportation of glucose, amino acids, electrolytes, etc. inside the intestinal mucosa. Now, talking about the passive transport. Now, passive transport here you see in this animation. Now, see the kind of movement it is taking place. Mainly, you have to see the concentration gradient here in the passive transport. Now, the movement of molecule is from their higher concentration. Here, the amount of molecule is high to the lower concentration. Now basically, the unloading is happening here. So unloading does not require much of an energy. So the movement will be very smooth or fluid here. So it will not require energy here, and the transportation of monosaccharides such as glucose, amino acids and electrolytes are absorbed by simple diffusion, where the molecule is traveling from their higher concentration to their lower concentration. So these two transportations are taking place by the intestinal mucosa for transportation of different molecules or substances. So now when we talk about the transport of water, it basically depends on the osmotic gradient. So what exactly is osmotic gradient? Let me explain you with the help of an example. So whenever you eat food, you feel the urge of drinking water right after it. Why? Because of the amount of solid food, or we can say the amount of salt that you are consuming inside the body is greater as compared to the amount of water present inside your body. So to maintain that balance of salt and water inside your body, you drink the water. So the same thing happens inside our body as well. So what happens is, when by the process of active transport or passive transport, if the solid molecules enters inside the cell, then the osmosis begins. How? Because the water molecules start entering inside the cells, as you can see in the second picture. So this is the second picture. Here you see the water molecules have started entering inside the cells. So they keep on entering, the water molecules keep on entering inside the cells till the balance is attained. Balance is attained. So in the third picture, you see that the balance of the salt or other molecules and water is now attained. So this is what osmosis is. And if we talk about the osmotic gradient, so this is the gradients where you see that on one side, the amount of water molecules is more as compared to the another side. So here we will say that osmosis is the movement of water molecules. Here understand that the osmosis only means the movement of water molecules, movement of water molecules from their higher concentration to their lower concentration. Now we are beginning with the fat absorption. So unlike carbohydrates and proteins, the fats and glycerol, they are insoluble in blood and water. Means they cannot be absorbed directly by the intestinal walls. So for them to get absorbed completely, they get first mixed with the bile salt or lipases here. So this is the fat globule, and it first gets mixed with the bile salts and lipases, and it gets converted into small micelles, as you can see here. Now this micelles can easily get absorbed inside the intestinal wall. So this is the intestinal wall in which these small micelles are getting absorbed. Now after entering inside the intestinal walls, these small micelles, here you see these small micelles, they have a protein coat around them, because of which they get reformed into small fat globules which are known as chylomicrons. Here you see the conversion of these small micelles are taking place, and these small micelles here are getting converted into the small fat globules, that is chylomicrons. Now these chylomicrons are getting transported inside the lymphatic vessels. This passage you can see. And these small fat globules which you see are the chylomicrons. Yes? Now these chylomicrons are then transported in the blood. So this is how the fat is getting absorbed. It is a quite long process as compared to the carbohydrates and proteins, which can get directly absorbed. But since the fat cannot get absorbed directly, so all these processes happens throughout or inside the intestinal walls for the fat and glycerol absorption. So now other parts also takes place in the digestion or absorption part. So now if we are talking about absorption in alimentary canal, so the parts that takes place in the process of absorption, and those are mouth, stomach, large intestine, small intestine, and we know from the various processes that we have seen in the topic digestion of food also, and here in absorption of food as well, from these processes we know that in the small intestine maximum absorption takes place in our whole digestive system or alimentary canal. So now let us summarize the absorption process in all the digestive parts. So we will start with the mouth. Here in the mouth, the certain drugs that are coming in contact with the mucosa of the mouth, if you are keeping them on the lower side of the tongue, so they are absorbed directly into the blood capillaries. So here, for the summary part, we are talking about the direct absorption in all the digestive parts that we are going to study. So here we are talking about the direct absorption. We know that the maximum absorption is taking place in small intestine, but other than that, the small amount of molecules or substances that are getting absorbed in other parts also. So for this reason, we are doing this summary part so that you can know that what kind of substances are being absorbed in different parts of the digestive system here. Now coming to the stomach. So inside the stomach, the direct absorption of water, simple sugars and alcohol etc. takes place, which again gets transported directly into the blood capillaries, which is present inside the stomach. So here the absorption of what? Water, simple sugars and alcohol is taking place. So as we have learned how absorption takes place inside the intestine, so by which we know that the small intestine is the principal organ for absorption of the nutrients. And you know the reason very well because of the villi which is present inside the small intestine, which facilitates in the maximum absorption process. Now we know that in small intestine the digestion is completed here and final products of digestion such as what? Glucose, fructose, fatty acids, glycerol, amino acids, all these nutrients are absorbed through the mucosa layer and to the blood capillaries, as you can see inside the villi. So this is the villi we are talking about, which is present in the small intestine, and all these nutrients that we have just talked about, all these get transported inside the blood directly inside the villi and through the all parts of the body. And now in the large intestine, the absorption of water, some minerals and drugs takes place, means the undigested or unabsorbed materials that travels inside the large intestine, they get absorbed simultaneously, and the kind of absorption of molecules that is taking place here is of water, vitamins, electrolytes and some other minerals till the unabsorbed material becomes the feces and gets out of the body. Now coming to the assimilation part, here the absorbed substances which reach the blood, they get transported throughout inside our body and get divided into different tissues present in our body, such as nerve tissue, cardiac muscles, smooth muscles, epithelial tissue, skeletal muscle, connective tissue. Now these nutrients are required by every other tissue inside our body for the better functioning or the overall functioning of our body. So basically, we are absorbing these nutrients for our healthy body, and that absorption for further activities which is done by our body, this is called as the assimilation. Here we are assimilating all the nutrients inside our body. Now in the last process of absorption, the digestive remains that pass through the large intestine, while their passage, the remaining water is absorbed and the unabsorbed material gets solidified into the feces, which gets stored temporarily inside the rectum. Here it is temporarily stored. Temporarily stored here. Now, for the removal of this feces, there is an initiation of neural reflex which causes its urge for the removal, for the further removal outside the body, from outside the body. So here, the egestion of feces is through the anal opening. Here you see that this is the anal opening from where the defecation process happens, means the removal of the solidified feces. And here you see the internal anal sphincter, which actually responds whenever there is a neural reflex for the urge of removal of the feces. So after this happens, so by the various or mass peristaltic movement, the feces goes out of the body. The peristaltic movement is taking place, and not only here, throughout the large intestine, wherever the feces is moving, there is the mass peristaltic movement is taking place till the anal part and outside the body. So with this we come to an end of this topic. Hope you understood the topic well. Thank you for watching this video and stay tuned for more amazing content. Thank you.